Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Haley Mitchell-Haugen. I'm the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And tonight we have gathered to celebrate the debut chapbook of Jessica Cory called Disposable. We're very excited to hear from Jessica tonight. And then we have about 7 readers from Sheila-Na-Gig Editions and online, especially our summer issue, who will be sharing a couple of their poems as well. So we're zooming in tonight from Northeast Kentucky, where the heat index is 107. I'm very wilty in my loft space, hoping some of you are a little cooler. And those of you who watch this later on YouTube, hopefully you'll be comfortable as well. So Jessica, very excited to have you here. I'm going to read one of her blurbs and give you a little bit of her bio if you don't know Jessica, and then we'll get going. So this blurb is from our most recent former poet laureate of Ohio, Carrie Gunter Seymour. She writes, Jessica Cory's new chapbook, Disposable, pays homage to Appalachia's labor class and the terrain from which they rise up year in, year out to earn a day's wage. Each poem is brilliantly interwoven with red, white, and blue truth, inspired by years lived within a region where natty light is slang for natural light beer, and tire tracks intersect railroad tracks, battered landscapes, and lives. A place where, despite hardships, she and her neighbors, quote, don their suits and dresses patterned with purple flowers every Sunday, same as their forebears, except this generation is practicing a gospel focused well beyond the puerile promise of a mansion in the sky. One like Moses, their fists are full and raised. Thank you for the wonderful blurb, Carrie. And a little bit about Jessica. Jessica Cory is the editor of the Appalachian Journal, a regional studies review published since 1972 at Appalachian State University. She holds a PhD in Native American, African American, and environmental literatures from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and is the editor of Mountains Piled Upon Mountains, Appalachian Nature Writing in the Anthropocene from West Virginia University Press, and the co-editor with Laura Wright of Appalachian Eco-Criticism and the Paradox of Place. Her creative and scholarly writings have been published in the North Carolina Literary Review, North Dakota Quarterly, Northern Appalachia Review, and other publications. So very clear from this bio, Jessica, you put a lot of time doing a lot of things for other people, right, and other journals and publications. So I'm real honored to have a chance to feature your work in this debut collection. So congratulations and welcome, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Haley. Thank you so much for just your constant support and for bringing this book into the world. And, just I don't know how you do all you do, but I certainly appreciate it. And thank you again to Carrie for that beautiful blurb. And thank you to you all for, showing up in the middle of a heat wave for most of us, on a Thursday that's, edging into the holiday weekend. So I appreciate you all being here. So I just wanted to kind of situate my book a little bit place-wise, because there's a couple of distinct places that appear within the book. So I grew up in southeastern Ohio, in Chillicothe, if anyone knows where that's at. And my father worked in Columbus. I lived in Columbus a little bit as a kid. But most of my life I was in Chillicothe and other parts of southeastern Ohio. And then in 2010, I moved to North Carolina. So I've been in North Carolina about 16 years now. And most of that has been in kind of the foothills in the western part of the state. So if some of the places you'll see in here, like southeastern Ohio, Columbus, and then kind of Silva or other places in western North Carolina. So just a little bit of geography there, because it does kind of play a role in a lot of the poems. The other thing that you'll notice is, as Carrie's blurb pointed out, a lot of these poems have to do with labor. I come from a very working class background. My father was a railroad worker until I was pretty young, and his, coworkers were getting hit by trains or being disabled with spinal injuries in their 20s. And my mother flat out said to him, "I'm too young to be a widow. Go find something else to do." And so he got work at a distribution center, and that's what he did until he retired. My mother was a loan officer for a bank. And, coming from that background and having a PhD is really weird because I learned that the biggest predictor of having a PhD is having a parent with a terminal degree. And so I start talking to people, and I'm like, I had to correct someone in my department last week because they were like making a joke about assembly lines. And I was like, I worked on an assembly line. Can we not do this, please? And so it's sometimes a weird class struggle that we find ourselves in, especially as someone who does not come from that background. So it's kind of, you see that a lot in here too. And so the first piece I want to read is actually the opening poem of the collection, and it's called 23 North. And if anyone's familiar with Ohio geography, 23 North is the road that goes, it's the highway that goes from Chillicothe to Columbus. And, a lot of people drive that way to go to work and come back from work. And so this was written while I was actually working at the same distribution center that my dad worked at. 23 North. Pete Yorn's music for the morning after pours from the cracked window of my hand-me-down Buick with its one working door handle. Speakers crackle, I live on a chain, into the 5 a.m. blackness of the interstate in my coffee. Maybe it'll work and I'll wake up soon. Another day, picking in the aisles, match sticker to items, slap it on, toss it in the cart, repeat, clock out, take the interstate, an hour back home. Repeat tomorrow and Wednesday and the rest of the work week because there's no rest for the weary and no jobs in my hometown paying above minimum wage. And at least I get weekends off and I'm done before dusk, I tell myself. Avoiding the mass exodus of 5 o'clock traffic, flooding outward from the city to the hills and hollers we call home. And that one car door, or the one working door handle, that Buick, actually, I was driving it in the winter and I stopped by my parents' house to tell them something. And it's winter in Ohio. And if you've been in winter in Ohio, it's cold, right? You don't want to turn your car off when you're just running in somewhere. So I left my car running and I got out the driver's side, which I could do because the working door handle was on the passenger side. So I get out this side and I run in and tell my parents whatever I need to tell them, and they come out and I yank the passenger door handle because I'm gonna slide across the seat like I stole it. And the door handle just breaks off because it's cold and it's winter in Ohio. And so now I have this running car, and it's a two-door car, right? So there's this running, early 90s Buick with its two door handles just both broken. And we actually had to break the window to get in to shut the car off. So just, if you ever end up thinking it'll be okay because you have a two-door car with one door handle, you might want to take it to the body shop or something. It did not go well. And again, a lot of these poems, focus on my dad's labor. Of course, my mom labored a lot too. She worked from home when I was about 10 years old. She started working from home as a loan collector. And so I grew up in the summers when I was home, she would call people and say, like, we're going to come repossess your car. You want to talk about having some loan trauma? I was like afraid to get a car loan until I was like 35. But those don't appear as much in here, but I'm working on some other things that talk about that. Next, I want to read a poem called Reading Robert Hayden While My Father Visits the Oncologist. My father passed away in the fall of 2023. He had lung cancer that spread to his brain. Interestingly enough, Southern Ohio has twice the respiratory cancer rate of the nation. The town that my parents lived in had one of the largest paper mills in the country that has since shut down. I read yesterday they're trying to put a data center there now. It was going to be a glove factory to make like neoprene gloves or something. But they've decided, I guess, to put a data center there. But my mother had a sinus tumor, my father died of lung cancer, and my uncle just survived, thankfully, throat cancer. So that area has, if you look at cancer clusters, it's kind of a giant red blob. All right, reading Robert Hayden while my father visits the oncologist. No one ever thanked him. Those mornings my father donned his decades-old tan Carhartt to tap the rusty Jeep starter with the wrench he kept on the tattered passenger floorboard for such a daily occasion. Before he drove the hour Columbus bound in the blue-black cold. Not on Sundays, like Hayden's father, but my father's paycheck still drove out the cold. Monthly payments to Columbia Gas and AEP in the apartment's rental office, making sure the rooms were warm. Our home never shared Hayden's chronic angers. My memories of home were calm because my father's memories of his childhood were not. He was able to stop such curses and trauma, but is not able to cease these cells so hell-bent on erasing his memories. This man and his stories have now become my own stories. A tale of healing, love's austere and lonely offices. Oh, thank you. I see all the little hearts. And so this next piece, how many of you remember the East Palestine Railroad derailment that put all the chemicals in the water? Yeah. Yep. So I heard about that and I started writing this poem called Bad Track. I grew up with stories of derailments. You know, my dad would tell me all sorts of train stories, really. Um, some probably more appropriate for children than others. But, you know, I always like grew up hearing about all these derailments because my dad would have to go and fix the track when the thing's derailed and get it back on. Um, and he told this funny story that, you know, back in I think it was the late 70s, they came out with something called the safety train, which was apparently it was like super air conditioned and like really innovative for its time. And he was chosen out of his crew to be, you know, one of the people riding the safety train. Well, the safety train derailed, and his crew had to come out and fix it while he got to sit in the air conditioned, luxurious comfort and watch them. Um, but anyway, lots of derailment stories. And when I heard about this, it's just kind of one in a series of longer ones that I'm familiar with. Bad Track. Early mornings, pre-work or pre-church or pre-Saturday errands, my mother spackled her face with CoverGirl's warm beige, waved her magic L'Oreal mascara wand in deepest brown across her eyelids, and repeated her regular incantation into our apartment's only bathroom mirror. Man, I look like 5 miles of bad track. My dad fixed track for the CNO in the late 70s and early 80s. He had long hair then, told me how his boss hated hippies, how it was always 10 degrees warmer or colder next to all that steel, depending on the season. How he witnessed the gray brains of his foreman's son spackle the cracks in the track when Junior didn't hear the engine round the bend. Noises echo in those hills, after all. They call scars from injecting substances into one's veins track marks, as though it's possible to track someone's history through the scars they leave behind. Or maybe those small speckles dotting elbows and absences between toes are more akin to tracking an injured animal, following its bloody sprinklings until you locate the vacant body. My ex used to walk to the 84 lumber yard just across the train tracks from our small apartment to visit his dealer, coming home with a bun, enough baggies that he'd be able to lay down track after track in the recording studio and play enough gigs to get more. A few years back, a Norfolk Southern train fell off the tracks in East Palestine without a way to trace the impact of vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, and isobutylene on the fish, soil, people who called and still call that place home. But it wasn't the track's fault. Instead, some faulty rotor or axle or computer should have functioned properly but failed. There is no person to blame, no one to call and ask if symptoms should be tracked, if the water is safe to drink, if the garden can be planted this year. Home is sacred. No one wants their homes or lives derailed. We don't want folks tracking in dirt or dirty laundry. We deserve safe spaces to examine the islands in our riverine veins, to utter incantations in our bathroom mirrors, to sing along to Dylan's Blood on the Tracks off key. Is anyone here familiar with Sylvan, North Carolina? Probably not. Okay. Maybe. David? Okay. Well, I used to drive several of the roads when I worked at Western Carolina University. And one of the things that I do when I drive, does anyone else do this where you like keep an eye out for like litter or roadkill or other things in case you just want to write poems about roadkill? Just me? Okay. Um, so it's just something I do when I drive is I notice things like that. And so this is called Along Coke Creek Road. Someone staked signs, white with red sans serif lettering, please don't litter, as though their signs don't serve to remind drivers by that the grass is owned and the scenery marred by signs just as much as litter. Even if that wasn't the grass owner's intent, even if the owner of the grass views signs as art and litter as garbage, because we are taught to value art but not garbage, but never taught to distinguish between the two, or distinguish how one can own art and garbage and signs and grass that stand beside the road, another's intentions staked into it. I'm going to follow that with a piece called Forlorn. That's a very similar, you'll see the signs, they appear in this poem too. I was really annoyed about those signs. They were just like, they put them like every 10 feet down this road. It's like, I'm not going to litter, but I am going to be annoyed. Like every 10 feet, not necessary. All right. This is a four-parter. Forlorn. Fur is in like the fur on a groundhog. Because I couldn't resist that pun. 1. Your bark-hued fur spackled the road on my grocery run. Your innards pulled outwards, a feast for the carry-on eaters. Tire tracks black across your road-rashed back, and nearby splatters sure how bits and pieces of you affixed to rubber, to undercarriage. 2. 500 feet from your corpse, 2 muddy truck tires stacked next to candy and nabs wrappers. A found sculpture amid the gravel-hewn pull-off. I wonder how many creatures' cells these tires have spread. Parked ironically next to a please don't litter sign, staked in the high grass. So much is at stake in our human takeover of the planet. On my morning grocery run, I saw blue pinwheels by the hundreds staked into government building front lawns, meant to raise awareness of child abuse, or maybe to prevent it. But what's preventing these pinwheels from landing in a landfill next to the county auditor election signs, the lilac-colored bows adorning the bridge's light poles for undisclosed reasons, the Starbucks cups emptied of their overpriced caffeinated contents? 3. Sycamore balls litter my backyard, their marshmallow centers oozing nugget-like if they fall, hard enough to the cobblestone pavers. The tulip poplar, which isn't really a poplar at all, gives petals, tie-dyed orange, white, and lime, lining the walkway between house and shed like a wedding aisle. 4. The groundhog doesn't need these words. They are human formed. And 4. Our cells, like microplastics, stretch county-wide. And also, in case no one knows what nabs are, because that was not a thing that I heard in Ohio. I had never heard that term in Ohio. Nabs are like, the little packets of crackers, like the cheese and peanut butter, or like the sour cream and chive, captain's wafer kind of things. That's what nabs are. Apparently, they call them that in the South. I don't know. I married a Southern dude, and that's what he calls them. And so then they end up in my poems, and here we are. And also, I did put a footnote in here for the parallel to Natty Light, because Natty Light is short for natural light beer. But I was in a poetry group workshopping that poem, and like half of them were like, "What's Natty Light?" And I'm like, "I'm guessing you haven't listened to terrible country music around a bonfire." And like, it made me kind of sad, but that's okay. We all have our different backgrounds, so it's now footnoted in case we folks have questions. And following the really depressing image of roadkill, I figured we'd read the last poem from the collection, called Bodies for the Birds. And this was originally published in a different version in North Dakota Quarterly, thanks to my dear friend Paul Worley. So, Bodies for the Birds. Vultures silently separate muscle from sinew, ligament from bone, cartilage from skin. Absent a syrinx, these creatures scavenge, stealthy as night shone in their feathers. Their creator knowing such purification rituals should be solemn. They're actually quiet. They can't make noise, which I thought was really cool. They can, however, almost run into my car and become roadkill, because there are definitely some right down the road from me that they need an intervention. All right. I want to read this one called Easter Sunday in the South, which was funny enough published in Northern Appalachia Review with a different title. I had to take the South part off. And that's on page 37. This was the one that mentioned the pattern dresses that Carrie talked about in her lovely blurb. So, Easter Sunday in the South. I don my gloves, fetch my bag, brain gray with a Navy Food Lion logo. Beside the road, I find the filters. 2 Marlboro Lights, 1 Pall Mall, 3 unidentifiable shredding to yellow and white fluff. 1 styrofoam clamshell and its accompanying checkered liner lingering nearby. Both fill my sack alongside paper napkins, a red Purina dog treat pouch, an airplane bottle devoid of its liquid contents, a white and yellow Bojangles bag. My neighbors don their suits and dresses patterned with purple flowers like the violets by my feet. These folks are headed to church. I am already there. And that's what I was doing this past Easter, in case anybody wanted to know. I live on a busy road. People like to throw all kinds of stuff in my yard, and then it ends up in my poems too, so it's fine, I guess. I like listing poems, if you couldn't tell. So lots of listing things. I've got 2 more, and then I will hand it off to David. A little bit of context for the next one, which does have some lists in it. So there is a moment in here that I'm kind of discussing family stuff a little bit. My mother was an orphan. So she lost her mother at age 2 and lost her father at age 16. And so there's a little bit of that in there that comes out. So if that just provides a little bit of context for folks. This is called Lullaby in Lane 3. The bespectacled cashier scans my organic raspberries, pork rinds, avocados, ranch dressing. Her gray bob sways slightly off tempo. What's love got to do with it? Settling into the store, from ceiling to speakers, reminding her and many of us that the hits of our day like us are no longer cool and in fashion. Opposed to this tune, she hums instead of chatting about the incoming storm. Her melody of mostly minor keys reminds me of a lullaby my mother's father hummed to his motherless children. A slow, short strain swaying in his throat. A song my mother recalled from his lips, sacred as a hymn. Traveling at the speed of sound to my ears, sleepy, with the buzz of summer cicadas and the floor fan's steady pulse. Here in checkout lane 3, the beep of my butter and the sure hand of Deb, her blue nameplate reads, evokes blood memories bone deep. And a big thank you to Carrie Gunter Seymour for including that one, as well as Bad Track and a few of the others in the volume, and the Women Speak anthologies that she and Haley put together. They're just so wonderful. So many good things in there. And they work so hard at it. And I'm sure some of you are in there as well. Maybe not David, but that's okay. Tom might be left out too, but who am I to judge? It's all right. All right. So the last poem that I'm going to read, it's called The Cost of Grief. So my mother passed away this past October. And I'm gonna just say it, is the only responsible child. I got to do all of the kind of, all of the things, right? All of the calling the people and the cleaning and all of the stuff. It was me and my aunts and a couple cousins. And so I was really, I don't talk about my feelings because why would I do that? And so I process things by writing about them, right? And then I show up to like my poetry workshop with these like really depressing poems, and everyone's like, "Are you okay?" But like it's cheaper than therapy. So that's how this poem kind of came about. Is I had a lot of receipts, and when I got home to Millers Creek, North Carolina, which is in the foothills, anyone know where Boone is? I'm like about 30 minutes east of Boone. It's hotter here. Apparently the heat index today is 102. And so I got back and I'm kind of organizing all the things. And so that's where that comes from. The cost of grief, $3,690.93 for cremation, online obituary, and graveside service with interment. $800 for junk removal. $682.40 for 5 nights in a hotel at the bereavement rate, with a free breakfast that included locally baked donuts from the original Krispy Kreme. Yes, with the C. $395 to hire Southern Ohio Monument Company to carve 2025 to the right of your dash and add Nothing Gold Can Stay below it because you loved Robert Frost. And although my sister and I guessed your favorite poem was The Road Not Taken, we didn't think it fit the epitaph genre. $32 in round-trip West Virginia Turnpike tolls. $99.91 to the locksmith to unlock the back door to which no one held the key because it always stuck and you never opened it. $26.53 for gas on the way up. $28.96 on the way back because Chillicothe, Ohio to Millers Creek, North Carolina is mostly uphill. $152.60 for the 2 autumnal wreaths I ordered. Grapevine crescent moons, feathered with dried lavender and orange rounds, meant to fill this incessant need to decorate my 2 front doors, to dig deep for cheer, to feather my nest because you can no longer feather yours. My first home, your body, your last home, my heart. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Jessica. It was wonderful. So we are celebrating Jessica Cory's debut chapbook, Disposable. This is just 46 pages, but listening to you here, read, there's so much in this little book, right? So much family history and culture and Appalachian history and environmentalism and critique. I mean, It is a lot in this little book, and I can't wait to see you put out something bigger too up the road too. I know it'll come. So thank you so much, Jessica. So we're going to change gears now and welcome some readers from Sheila-Na-Gig Online. Some from our forthcoming summer issue, so you get a little sneak peek at our summer offerings. And some of our authors are also Sheila-Na-Gig Editions book authors as well. Some are doing double duty in both. So welcome, David Prather is going to start us off.
Hello, everybody. And thank you so much, Jessica, for a wonderful reading. And thank you, Haley, for inviting us to be here. I'm going to go ahead and read a couple of poems that basically I'm ribbing my father. He likes to give me the business, so I'd like to give it right back. So here we go. Shoe care. My only idea of the kiwi bird came from a picture on my father's black shoe polish. I loved when he got out that flat, round can on Saturday afternoons, his long-abused work shoes, polished brush, and buffing cloth. I thought the kiwi was a myth, like a phoenix or thunderbird. When my father told me it was real and flightless, I didn't want to believe him. He had told tall tales before. He enticed me to dream dinosaurs so tall their heads parted clouds, convinced me an eagle could fly so high it could skim the edge of space. On that vintage tin, the gold and brown image made the earth-bound creature look like a hunched old man with a cane for a nose, a hermit living alone upon a barren field. I imagined the call of the kiwi had to be that shush, shush sound of a brush buffing the toes and heels. That pungent aroma, leather and whiskey intoxicating. I remember my father using a shoehorn to wedge his feet into those boots, then walking out the door. And the second one is Land of Giants. Some fathers are myths whose children sprout from their foreheads or a muscled thigh. Others are giants, like mine, the ones, it's been told, who lie down among trees and leave valleys where they sleep. They stand so tall, their shoulders are draped with clouds. Something atmospheric shrinks them down. A passing storm, a heavy snow, a wind so fierce the world is knocked flat. First, the clouds go unbroken over their heads. Then, the tops of tulip poplars batter their shoulders. Before long, they are just men standing alone in the valleys they created. Some get smaller still, slip into the branches as cicadas. We know them by their harshest voices. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Ellen Austin Lee, and I'm going to read two poems that appeared in Sheila-Na-Gig, on both of them. So the first one I'm going to read was actually in last summer's issue, and I never made it to any of the readings to read it, so I'll read it now. And the title is Cold Moon. It has a winter setting, so maybe that will help some of us. It's a sad poem, but maybe evoking winter is a good thing. Cold Moon. I walk farther across the open field toward the full moon rising, heavy with promise, a pregnant woman, but her image in my lens stays the same distance away, out of reach, not letting me near. Her bright orb teases me into believing she is close. I raise my fingers to touch her cheek, but the mother pulls away. I drop my hand, shake my head, hope no one watched this foolish scene from the hotel windows overlooking the way. I've learned to never show anyone what I need. I drive 10-hour stretches on interstates to chase this place called home, but home shrinks away like a lover grown tired of my neediness. My mother still lives in the red brick house where I was raised, the same curve and the stone path leading to the front door. When my sons were young, I nestled against them so often I knew their scents, could map the wings of their bones beneath gossamer skin. But as they grew, my warmth shrank like the sun slipping below the horizon, inevitable, preordained. I've tried to be different, but this chill inhabits me. The winter my father withered in a hospice bed parked in the living room, I bathed him during his last days, turned him side to side while he slid into unconsciousness, cared for him down to the tiniest drops of water placed between parched lips. But I couldn't forgive myself for how I had to escape every few hours to walk in St. Mary's Cemetery. Afterward, my mother said, "You're certainly a wonderful daughter." Why hadn't I heard these words before? Would I have been different? Could I have stayed inside, cried? The night my father died, I stared at the moon reflected on silvered snow, cold, dry-eyed. And that's from my book that came out last year, Incidental Pollen. And I don't know, it's a pretty sad poem, but I'm going to counterbalance that with the poem that's going to be coming out with this current edition of Sheila-Na-Gig. And this is called Telling His Parents. And it's a throwback to telling my husband's parents when I was pregnant. When my right belly filled my striped overalls at 6 months, I begged my love to tell his parents. When he told them 2 years earlier we wanted to marry, they squawked. When you choose a woman, they said, she must be at least 5 years younger. Can she still have children? Not a wink beat of, she is not Chinese. Or did he spare me? No, no women like me posed in the photos where they paused to ask their son, what about this one? When we first met at the Yum Yum, his father asked, what's wrong with moving to your own hometown? This said on the night of bursting seams. Can you sew? His mother asked. Can you cook? The dumpling turned in my oven. When we left the restaurant, my love nodded. Soon, I promise, and took my hand. After night shifts in the hospital, hovering over sick kids in the PICU, I collapsed and slept all day in my love's nest. When he finally delivered the news to his parents, his mother called my name into the empty house. She stood at the threshold and chirped, we're happy about you. We want you to know we're happy about you and the baby. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm Betsy Mars and glad to be here. And sorry I'm not there other than the weather. I hate to tell you what the temperature is here in California because I think you've got about 30 degrees on me. So I feel very lucky to be back here now, but I miss all of you. I was just back there with Bonnie and David and Ellen and Carrie, and it was just always a wonderful place for me to be. Anyway, this is a great reading, and I hadn't known Jessica's work, so I really enjoyed it. I'm still getting to know Appalachia, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the book too. The first one I'm going to read is from Sheila-Na-Gig. I don't remember which edition this is, but I just found out it's going to be published again in Silver Birch's series on advice. So I decided I'll go with this one. It's called Androcles, and if you're not familiar with it, I don't know, I must have read a children's book about the guy going into the cave. He's hiding in the cave and he finds a lion and he pulls the thorn out of its paw and they become friends, and the lion takes care of him and shows him mercy and provides sustenance and all that. So I'm going to read this one. Androcles. Each time that I drag myself from bed, heart full of dread for what the day might bring, I tick a box off the finite number of mornings on offer, ask myself whether it matters and why. I tell myself I am impotent, unimportant, a bit character in this play that my mother reminded me was not a dress rehearsal. Another cliche, but one of the only bits of maternal wisdom that sticks. We make our meaning, I suppose, though at this moment, all that comes to me are trite visions of ripples and butterfly wings fanning air that someone elsewhere breathes to sing. I hold each destination fleetingly with yearning and despair, a constant goodbye on my lips, one foot out the door the instant I arrive. From where I stand, what does it mean to have pulled a thorn from a lion's paw or spread my words like seeds, not knowing where or how they land? If grief is love and love begets grief, will I be pardoned in the end? And then slightly, I guess a less serious one, I guess. It's a memory, and I thought the timing is good because of the 4th of July holiday coming up. But this was recounting an incident during the bicentennial, which I can't believe is so long ago as it is now. But it's too many bicentennial pens. That summer after junior year, Kathy and I had our first job in a building full of mostly empty rooms. What is it about 17? On the edge of adulthood, nearly there at last. Here, at least, we were equal to cheerleader Debbie with her shiny Dorothy Hamill wedge cut as we worked side by side. Now we were only voices on the phone, dulling her beauty's brighter edge. We met in the dark in the parking lot each morning before 5 to get cheaper telephone rates. Our targets, the eastern states, were done by 8. We grabbed phone books from the pile, flopped in beanbags with our dial phones, dialed businesses out of state, Dave's Auto Glass or Bob's Barber Shop, and got the owner on the line. If our pitch worked, we'd transfer them to the waiting salespeople, always men, in the other room preparing their bait. The story was always the same. We'd had an overrun of pens for a place with the same name, and lucky for them, they could have those pens at a bargain rate, take them off our hands, prevent waste, a nice bit of publicity, a gift. It was the bicentennial, and at 17, what did we know of grift? We were heartless and loved to get a bite. When our shift was over, we'd head to the beach to sleep it off, dream of fireworks, dread the coming of the fall, when we would no longer be glamorous secretaries a la Mad Men, but back to class once again, invisible in the halls. Thank you.
I think I'm next, but I had to unmute myself first. I'm so honored to be invited into this wonderful company of poets. I'm just pleased to listen and hear all of you, both the words and the voices. And I want to let Jessica know that I spent several years in upstate New York and Syracuse in graduate school, plus 4 in Cleveland. And so I know about winter weather also. The poem I'm going to read is in this immediately forthcoming issue. It started out as an ekphrastic poem from a photograph I saw online that just haunted me. Oh, there's a Syracuse person. Okay, Ellen. It's called Boot, Sock, Foot, and it has an epigraph. In 2024, searchers discovered young Sandy Irvine's partial remains 100 years after his Everest expedition with Edmund Mallory. Found the boot, cracked leather, The sock, its raveling cotton fiber. Within, what's left of his foot, exposed by melting glacial ice. The men who stumble on these small remains are stunned by this chance clue to his lost future. The boot, the sock, and the name tag clinging to its stitched ribs witness to domestic care. Was it his mother who stitched his name in place, fretting in late light? Sewed so the sock, if the sock were lost, could be claimed, if the body, so it might be fetched home to her. How many trusting mothers have marked socks or shields or skin, nodded prayer into the work in hopes their sons and daughters might be found? Return whole, neither soul nor body harmed? If not, those prayers unraveled, found by some seeker who'd chosen to climb or dive or dig to sift, to find. In the next century, who will undertake to search out remains of our blighting future? Bring news from any icy slope or rift, any field of war, words of artifact, words of life. What debris might survive us, boot, sock, sun? What handiwork, what stitched or scribbled name might last, scattered among sands or under mortar pits, or awash in tides that roll where cities once rose, lit by sharp stars that glitter over this one precarious world? Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then for something that becomes it's a little bit more of a rising poem after that darkness at the end. This was written again, Nick Frastic, after seeing new photographs of Bakhmut, Ukraine. Through the terrible bright furnace. After Hiroshima, after so much fire-ripped life and not life, what does survival mean? To stumble blind through blaze, to emerge on the other side of death? The Japanese survivors were pierced by radiating needles, stitched by scarlet threads of loss, child, father, wife. Yet also in that city, 6 sacred trees, ginkgo bilobas, withstood the searing blast. They bowed before the terrible bright furnace, bowed and burned, but at root refused to be consumed. Hardly spared, they struggled up stem and shoot, unfolding palms of leaves to promise breeze, relief. Today, tomorrow, other war fires spread to more cities, your city, someday perhaps to mine. How can either of us hold a breath for hope, but in these 6 green trees persisting half a world away, still blessing ravaged earth? May each of us pass through blitz and blaze, emerge unbowed, rise again green, to bud, to blossom, to offer shade. Thank you. Thank you. That was published in the South Florida Poetry Journal, which if you have not looked at it, it's a wonderful place. Go take a look and send there. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Judith. I'm going to read the first poem I'm going to read was in the spring issue of Sheila-Na-Gig. And I've been thinking a lot about exiles for a good reason, for obvious reason. This poem is titled Exile. Dear Father, 4 a.m. in Cleveland, 6 floors below on the dark street, a dog chases its tail, spinning like a dreidel. The musical note of a wine bottle kicked down the alley. The drugstore here closes at 10. Its neon name buzzes like a radio, seeking a dead signal. Then a cop drives by, talking to someone in the back seat as he eats falafel with one hand. He ignores the old Ford pickup parked in a loading zone, pigeon feathers in its grill. My wife moans in her sleep while I pull the drapes. All our windows are wide open tonight. You would recognize this city with its asphalt wind, the way it pants like a tired dog. Here, the innocent still sleep hard, unaware this city rests on a knife's edge. As you know, they all do. The other poem I'm going to read is from the 2024 Sheila-Na-Gig. It's entitled Trophy. Dad kept a photo in his cufflinks box of the 38 Buick Century with the straight 8 he bought from Uncle Buck after the war, the one that caught fire between Cambridge and Quaker City in 46 and burned the axles. 60 years later, he would tell me about that car like a kid who caught a Gehrig home run ball. He'd go on about how the tires blew at least once a month, how well made him feel like a Vanderbilt as he cruised past the glassworks at shift change. When the men heading home would look up from their lunch boxes and Lucky Strikes to witness their reflection in the polish. As a child, I could never hold such a shine for him, not like the Ward's silicone glaze he so lovingly applied, this in a mining town where he had to delicately brush away the coal dust every morning, lest it scratch the finish. To this day, I wonder if his hands ever touched my mother that way. Thank you.
Hi there. This is Jonie McIntire, and I am very excited to have a poem in the summer edition, and it is this one. It's called Of the Political Polls That Never Stop Calling, What I Want to Tell Them. And then, of course, that's the title, but it also sort of rolls into the first line. So, of the political polls that never stop calling, what I want to tell them, where to stick it. But I'm all tuckered out, and they never ask about my abortion or why all my black neighbors rent but the white own. They don't ask about my Uncle Tucker, who would have been in his 50s by now if he hadn't hanged himself at 17. They don't ask about why so many cars keep driving into houses, why it's easier to get weed than a decent electrician, why my hot flashes have turned into perimenopausal rage. I want to tell them the greatest of all time can't be known until we're gone, that asking today what we'll do tomorrow is counting eggs as future egg layers. But tomorrow is work. And going to the doctor is work, and eating real food is work, and drinking water and reading about another natural disaster is work, and worry is work, and fear is work. And even Tucker, even back when he was a teen, was tuckered out already. So I scroll through email, delete, 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 save, try to find beauty in a smoothly running roundabout, in the rose bush still thriving despite so many aphids, in the crossword puzzle clues I definitely know the answers to. And there's a little list for you, right? And then Jessica read an Easter poem. And by the way, those were great poems, Jessica. I'm really excited about that book. That sounds wonderful. But this is Easter Sunday for Cynics. When churches weren't open or her legs too brittle to hold, my grandmother would watch on TV, read from pamphlets, reread old passages in a tattered Bible. She found God every time, from Jerry Falwell to the cartoons of the Latter-day Saints to the sun on her back porch. I wake early, Easter Sunday in a cynic's house during dark times. And I check on the robin's nest, tucked away in a second-story corner window ledge. 3 days ago, just mud and straw. Then 1 egg within a day, 2 in another, now 3 perfect eggs, more beautiful than sky or sea. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks for wrapping us up. And thank you to all our Sheila-Na-Gig invited mic readers. And special thank you to Jessica Cory, celebrating her debut chapbook at Disposable. You can find our online journal and all of our books at Sheila-Na-Gig-blog.com. Next week is July 9th, and we will be welcoming Paul Alechko, a New Jersey poet, will be our featured reader, along with some more Sheila-Na-Gig folks as well. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in.